Hey folks, how's it going? My name is David here if you're new to the channel, and this is your one-stop resource for all things bluegrass mandolin. This video is no exception because we'll be covering a really classic bluegrass jam technique that I've mostly heard called a tag lick ending. It's the idea of sticking on a little bit of a melody at the end of the fiddle tune to bring things to a close and make sure that everyone at the jam is on the same page about where we're ending. And if you're new to the bluegrass jam, I know it can be really intimidating. I remember my first jam and I was scared out of my mind just because you're putting yourself out there in front of strangers and you don't know what the rules or the guidelines are for how to operate within a jam like this. And one of those kind of unspoken nonverbal cues is this idea of a tag lick, and it's something that you've probably heard before if you've been around bluegrass at all. Check this out. So obviously we're going to be checking out this idea in this video today. I'm going to show you how to play that exact same lick. I'll show you how to play it in a few different keys so you can use this at the jam to end whatever fiddle tune you might encounter. Then we're going to check out another classic fiddle tune lick to give you some variety, and even more variety later on. I'll show you how to improvise your own tag licks and make one up off the cuff to fill a really standard amount of space to make sure that everyone's still ending at the same time together. So whenever you're ready, grab your mandolin and let's check this out. So first up, let's talk about when and how you might use this at a bluegrass jam. And one thing to clarify is that most people don't use tag licks like this for vocal tunes at a bluegrass jam. It's mostly instrumental music and mostly in this category that people call fiddle tunes, which are these really melodic, notey tunes that fiddle players are known for, but also mandolin players too. So pretty much any standard run-of-the-mill fiddle tune like Blackberry Blossom, Big Scioto, St. Anne's Reel, you name it. But even within this small subcategory of bluegrass music, you know, the fiddle tune genre, if you will, we don't always use tag licks like this to end a tune. So first, let's talk about when you might not use these licks, and then we can figure out when to put them in and how to play them. So first up, we only play these specific tag licks in 4/4 time, so you won't experience anything like this in a waltz or any other meter that you might encounter at the bluegrass jam. And next, this one's kind of interesting because I usually don't hear people play tag licks like this over a minor or modal tune. You notice that lick I played at the beginning was very major sounding, and usually there aren't any minor or modal variations. So if you're playing Cold Frosty Morning, for instance, which is a pretty minor sounding tune, for one, it wouldn't sound right to play this major tag lick at the end of the tune. And in my experience, I haven't really heard anyone transpose that tag lick to a minor key either. But not to split too many hairs here at the beginning, this has just mostly been my experience at the jam. Let me know in the comments below if you've heard different. So we don't play these on waltzes, we don't usually play these on minor/modal tunes, but let's talk about when we can use these now. So let's pick a fiddle tune that's in 4/4 time, that's in a major key, and how about we pick the key of A major since that's the key we've been playing this lick in so far, and let's just pick this tune called Red Prairie Dawn, which is a tune that you can find in a lesson video up here in the cards above, just so happens to fit that bill. And just to fast forward to the end of this tune, I'll play through the B section once and show you how you might use this tag lick to end that tune. So you probably see what's going on here, right? We're playing through the entire melody to the very end of this tune, and then we're adding on this 4-measure excerpt at the end here for the tag lick. So let's see if we can actually learn this thing here in the key of A, and let me break things down a little bit so you can get it in your fingers. First up, we have this 2-note pickup at the beginning, open E up to the 4th fret of your E string, and we're starting the next measure on this A note here on the 5th fret. And here at the beginning of this measure, we're doing this little neighbor tone idea from 5, 4, 5, open. Then we're walking back up to the 5th fret, ending with this 2nd fret here on our index finger. Then we're just going to be walking down the A major scale from your open E string, 5, 4, 2, open. Then we're going to walk up from our open to the 2nd fret, leading up to the 4th fret at our next measure. Then we've got this kind of twisty fiddle tune style ending where we're starting on the 4th fret of the A string, walking down to the A. Then we're doing the same thing again. We're walking down to the 2nd fret on your D string, A, 4, 2, 6 on the G, down to the 2nd fret, which is your A note again, to really bring things home here on the root of our key again. Try that all together with me here on screen. Nice. Well, try to memorize this and get it under your fingers because you can use this to end any A major fiddle tune that you want to. But unfortunately, we do have to play in some other keys as well at the Bluegrass Jam. So let's see if we can learn this exact same lick in a few other common fiddle tune keys that you might encounter at the Bluegrass Jam. Starting off with D major because it's pretty similar to what we just played in the key of A. We're just moving a string up towards the ceiling and we're changing a couple notes at the end to fit the register of the mandolin. Sounds like this. So here in the key of D, we're using kind of the same fingerings and frets that we used in the key of A, but now we're starting on our A string instead of our E string. So check this out. Starting off with this walk up to the 5th fret on the A string. Then we have this neighbor tone idea. Down to the open A, walk up to the 5th fret again. Walk down to the D string. This little twisty bit. Down to the 2nd fret of your G string. And then since we're running out of real estate, we can't play any lower than our open G, we're gonna have to hop up the octave and just play this nice little D major arpeggio. Let's try this one out too. Moving on down to the key of G, which of course is our favorite key on the mandolin, but it is a little bit trickier to play this lick in the key of G because we're gonna have to change things up to fit the register of this melody. So check out what's going on here for the key of G. So we're starting off on the 5th fret of our A string now, hopping up to the 2nd fret of the E string for the pickup. Then we're landing on our high root here on the 3rd fret of our E string, that G note at the beginning of the first measure. From there you've got that neighbor tone motion now on your middle and index fingers. Hopping down to the 5th fret of the A again, walking up from the open E to the G, open E, walking down to the low G here on the 5th fret of your D string. Then we've got this kind of twisty fiddle tune style ending again. And then ending with a familiar low passage. Try that together with me. Another common fiddle tune key is C major, so let's see if we can get our fingers around this melody in that key center as well. So this should feel pretty familiar too because it's the same fingerings and fret numbers as the key of G. We're just hopping up a string towards the ceiling. Then when we get down to the open G, we've run out of real estate again, so we're gonna have to hop up the octave just like we did for the key of D major. We've got this nice little arpeggio at the end for our C major triad. Let's give that a shot too. So just to be thorough, let's try this out in the key of B flat because that's maybe the last key that you might encounter for a fiddle tune at the jam. It goes something like this. This one's a little bit harder, right? Because we're gonna have to use our 4th finger on the A and the E string on the 6th fret. So let's check out what's going on here. Starting off on the 1st fret of your E string, hopping up to the 5th fret on your ring finger, and there's that dreaded pinky at the beginning. So now we have to do that neighbor tone motion on the pinky and the ring finger. Down to the 1st fret, walking back up to the 6th. Walking down the scale to your B flat here on the 1st fret. Then we've got that twisty fiddle tune ending. All right, you got this. Try this together with me. So So before moving on, just as an exercise, let's see if we can play through all 5 of those tag lick endings in these 5 different keys back to back just to get them in our fingers a little bit better. Of course, if you want your own copy of the PDF transcription for all these licks, you can grab it over on Patreon at the link in the cards above. And there's a bunch of other stuff there that you'll find, like backing tracks, transcriptions for all sorts of other stuff. So check it out if you haven't already. But for now, you'll see all these tag lick transcriptions here on screen. So let's try all 5 of these out together again. Okay, so let's dig deep and see if we can learn one other classic fiddle tune lick. And I say this is a fiddle tune lick, but it's actually something that we've stolen from the banjo catalog. Check this out. I think we have Earl Scruggs to thank for that one, but it works really well over a fiddle tune as well. And let's see what's going on here in the key of A to start with. First up, we're doing this really long slide from the 2nd fret on your E string to the 5th fret with your ring finger. Be sure to hold on to that first note for a full quarter note before you start sliding. After that slide, we're playing another note on the 5th fret of the E string, back down to the 2nd fret. Again, a little bit faster now, playing 8th notes. Then playing this nice walk down to the open A string. Then we have this really familiar melody starting on the 4th fret of the A string. And then the weird part is hopping up to the E string after that, playing the 4th fret, leading up to the root on the 5th fret again. Let's try this out. And you know the drill. Let's try this out in all those other keys as well, starting with D major again. So here in the key of D, we have the exact same fingerings and fret numbers as in the key of A. We're just hopping up a string towards the ceiling again. So let's see if we can try this together. But when we get to the key of G here, we have to shift things slightly at the beginning. We're gonna slide from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret instead of that bigger slide like we had in the key of A and D. Here's what that sounds like all together. So here we're using our middle finger slide from 2 to 3 on the E string, down to the open E string, walking down to the E again, down to the open A. Then we have our lower root on the 5th fret of the D string. That familiar melody again, hopping up to the 2 and 3 on the E to finish this off. Here's that whole thing together. All right, key of C now, exact same fingerings and fret numbers as the key of G, just up a string again. Check this out. Here that is a bit slower. And again, to be thorough, let's see if we can do this in the key of B flat too. The weird thing is sliding with your pinky from the 3rd fret to the 6th fret on the E string. Then it's all familiar territory. Take your time with this one, and when you're ready, let's try this out together. All right, so take a deep breath, but let's see if we can do the same thing with this lick as we did before and drill all 5 of these keys back to back to back to back to back. Here we go, starting with A. All right, nice work, folks. Those are probably the two most common and most quoted verbatim fiddle tune tag licks, banjo tune tag licks as well, that you might encounter at the Bluegrass Jam. But there are some variations and some different ideas that you might encounter along the way too. So let's pause here and talk about those. So let's come back to that first lick again. A really common variation of this one that you'll encounter is a 2-measure variation where we end the lick on the 3rd beat of this 2nd measure. Sounds like this. I know it does sound a little deceptive after hearing that 4-measure version so much in this video, but this is a common variation and you just have to listen out for what the leader of the jam is going to do here at the tag lick. If they stop on that 3rd beat of the 2nd measure, we have to stop with them. And we're just listening for the next notes and allowing that to be our cue to see if we're going to keep going for the next 2 measures or not. I know this is easier said than done, but it is a bit of a sixth sense that you start to develop after going out to the jam a lot, and it gets easier, I promise. But in the meantime, just listen hard and see if you can follow along with everyone else. All right, but on a much broader note now, another variation that you'll encounter is improvised fiddle tune tag licks. And that's what a lot of players do. They don't always stick to one of these 2 licks that we learned here in this video. Sometimes they'll improvise something totally new that fits the exact same amount of space so people still know when to end together. And I know I just threw you for a loop with this 2-measure variation, but most of the improvised fiddle tune tag licks that I hear fill the complete 4 measures that we've been working with so far in this video. And the tough thing is they're not all the same, they're improvised, right? But there are some kind of loose guidelines and some commonalities that you'll see in these improvised tag licks, and usually there's a lot of similarities to those 2 iconic licks that we learned here in this video. So let me show you a few here. First, there's usually a 2/8 note pickup to the tag, just like we've been working with in the other licks, and usually the first note of this full measure here at the beginning is going to be the root note of whatever key that you're working with. So let's say we're in the key of A and we're improvising a fiddle tune tag lick. Maybe our pickup could be open E and F sharp leading up to the A right here. And this is where things get a little bit fuzzy because we're improvising some different notes around our A major scale to fill up our first measure and the first 2 beats of the 2nd measure. And then we're trying to find a way of landing on our lower A note on our open A string here on the 3rd beat of the 2nd measure. So to put that in practice, here's what's going on. I'm trying to get from this high A to this lower A in a very specific amount of time and filling the gap with a lot of 8th notes along my A major scale. And it might sound like this. But that's just one of many possibilities, right? Here's another variation. And it's up to you to fill this space however you see fit, so spend some time noodling around and seeing what works within this set parameter. But we still have to finish out this 4-measure tag lick, right? And our next destination is landing on another root, another A note here in the key of A, on the 3rd beat of the 4th measure. And like we've seen in those 2 licks that we learned, this could either be a low root here on the 2nd fret of our G string, or a high root here on the 5th fret of our E string. But now again, it's up to you to decide about how you're gonna fill this space between the 3rd beat of your 2nd measure where we stopped earlier, and now the 3rd beat of the 4th measure. And you could do so many different things, right? Here are just a couple of ideas. So you get the idea. You can play some blues notes like I was playing there, or some chromatic ideas, or you can just stick to the A major scale or the A pentatonic scale. All that's great. The main thing to keep in mind is just trying to hit those roots at those really specific points in this excerpt. So here we have a root on the 1st beat of the 1st measure. We want to land on the root on the 3rd beat of the 2nd measure and really bring it home on the 3rd beat of the 4th measure with another root. And of course, these aren't hard and fast rules, but they're really good guidelines. And the most important thing is making sure that you end whatever you play on the 3rd beat of that 4th measure, because if you end too early or too late, it's going to be hard to communicate where things are really coming to a close to the rest of the jam, and it's gonna be a little bit bumpy. And by the way, ending tunes with tag licks like this is just one of the many nonverbal things to expect at the jam. Another cool thing that you can use to kick off fiddle tunes is this idea of taters or potatoes. And if you haven't seen this lesson video that I have on this topic, check it out here in the cards above. Also, there's some other videos here on screen that you might enjoy checking out, some fiddle tune lessons, some playlists, so be sure to watch and hit that like and subscribe button for me. It really goes a long way to making all these videos possible. Of course, you can check out that Patreon page at the link in the description below if you want even more mandolin content and learning resources in your life. But in the meantime, just keep up the good work, and I'll see you in the next video.